Oh, we're live. Hello,
Hello, everybody.
YouTube. Yay. I was going to say hello, E-Rank, but most of you probably are, but you're not. You're my crafty clan because we're in this YouTube, which we haven't been live before. And although there's no secret here because he's right there, but this is my first ever guest.
That's me.
Yay.
I am
Hello,
Brian. Hello,
Brian.
everyone.
I think everybody will know a Brian, but tell us a little about yourself.
If you don't know me yet, you will soon. I'm Brian. I run Cursed by Design, an Etsy shop for the last 5 years. I've done quite a bit of work for eRank over the last 2 years, and I help in all of the groups because that's just what I love to do. I love to just geek out about Etsy. When I dive into something, I dive way too deep into it, so I just know all of the things, and I spend a lot of time reading handbooks and legal documents and all that type of stuff. So I just know stuff and like to share that information.
Absolutely. Definitely, if you're anywhere on Facebook asking about anything Etsy, Brian's probably answering you.
Yeah, anything Etsy, anything 3D printed, anything Shopify, odds are you've seen my name somewhere before.
Yep. And yeah, I kind of bullied him into joining in today because we were having a little geek out with graphs and numbers and things in the E-Rank group. And I think it was Anna that I'm seeing there was saying, yeah, you guys should totally be doing this on a live. And I thought, hang on, I have a live up and coming. So obviously Brian can do his makeup far quicker than me. So I'm able to say, Brian, do you want to come live? And he just goes, yeah. Whereas I have to say, no, I have to make myself look not as bad, basically.
The advantages of being a guy. That's all it is. Don't have to. I put my hair in a ponytail and I'm like, okay, are we live?
Same. uh-huh. But yes, we should say what we're going to be doing. So yesterday, the Etsy Q4 financial results report came out. Yay. And there's always a lot of stuff. There is always cool stuff in that for us. This is always the time when Etsy throw in little changes and things. I was going to mention, but don't need to because we did it in the eRank Live just a few minutes ago, but Etsy have announced slight changes to new shop. So when you're finished here, go back and get the eRank Live so I don't repeat that. But we will be going through the quarterly report and seeing what little nuggets Etsy's given us. And the question that everybody always asks is, are sales low on Etsy? We have stats, data, graphs, cats, all sorts of things. Yeah, so yeah, we'll play with the cats for a couple of minutes and then we'll dig into all of that.
And these reports are meant for investors, to get investors excited about it, but there's always great tidbits in there for us sellers too.
Absolutely. And that's a good point, is that you'll see in some of them, it does seem a little skewed. You'll be like, why do I care if the money Etsy's bringing in is this much? Or, it's because they're selling it to investors, but they have to sell how they're going to improve things. And to improve things, they hopefully have to get more buyers in to make us all more money, we hope.
And some of the stats that we go over today may shock you.
See, look, you're good at this YouTube thing.
Except I think you're supposed to clickbait before they click, not after.
Yeah.
They're already here watching and we're like, yeah, but join us because
yeah, well, we clickbaited in the eRank video. I don't think I clickbaited this title. Sometimes I'm very, very rude in the titles. So, yeah. Jenna knows for sure now that Brian is cool. Oh, wait, we all knew that, but is that the cat or
specifically why? For the cats or just because of how little makeup I had to put on? or that I love numbers. Numbers are cool.
Yeah, sadly you are stuck with the nerds today quite often.
Hey,
Me
CJ.
and Brian, me and Brian do get into the same stream sometimes together, but in general, there's other people with me to rein me back when I start doing numbers, and nobody can stop us because it's my channel and it's us two here.
They weren't
Yeah,
cool in our day, but now they're just cool. It's great. We're all older now in like elementary school or high school or whatever. Being into numbers, that was not a good thing. But now, amazing.
oh,
Amazing.
I had so many ways to be uncool in school that the numbers wasn't wasn't even an issue. But yeah, it's come right round, and now we are cool. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna pull up some of our first graphs because Etsy give us a lot of numbers, so it's always nice. For those of you who've been here before, I always plot some graphs, and then Brian gave me some extra numbers, so we plotted some extra graphs between us. So let's do this way. So this is the first graph that I always share, that I always update every quarter. And this is Etsy revenue and GMS from the first quarter 2017 to current. GMS, gross mean sales,
Gross
is
merchandise sales.
merchant. Yeah, oh, this is cool. I always get these all wrong. Gross merchandise sales. This is the sales. This is what customers, how much customers have come in and spent on Etsy. And revenue is how much money Etsy's making. So the GMS is the numbers customers are paying. Revenue is going to be things like our fees, Etsy ads, and all the other things that Etsy makes. Do we want to read much in? Well, one thing that Etsy definitely did say, the gold line is the revenue, if you can't see that, and the blue line is the GMS. Etsy did mention that revenue is at a record high. They've made the most money that they've ever made, but the growth is probably not as huge as the shareholders want, because shareholders like money.
And
And
this is the first time that Etsy's revenue has, I mean, the numbers are represent different things, but this is the first time that their numbers have gone higher than the GMS numbers, which is good.
yes. Well, is it good? Yeah, but yes, you can see there's a definite trend where these lines have crossed over. Now, don't read too much in that the lines are on different scales, because it's a 2-axis graph for everybody that knows these things. The lines are on different scales. I'll get it the right way around. Revenues in millions, GMS is in billions. So what customers are spending on Etsy is more than the Etsy profit. What Etsy's making, basically. But what basically happened about a year or so ago with the increase in Etsy fees and certain amounts of things, Etsy's able to make slightly more money. So sort of the ratio flipped a little bit. So Etsy's able to make a little bit more while sales aren't quite as much, is roughly what their graph's telling us.
Yeah. And it seems like the fourth quarter is always the best quarter. It's so weird.
Wonder what happens then. I mean, this was a trend. I plotted these graphs way before the before times, way before 2020, and this was always a thing. Things went up kind of, and then there was a Christmas peak, but always the Christmas peak was higher than the year before, and the quarter one was higher. It was always growing. So the past 2 years have been an outlier in that they haven't grown. However, we can see the pandemic, there was a massive jump that changed the trajectory of everything a little bit.
Yeah. So even though it is lower of an increase from the year over year, the increase from just the regular quarters to the fourth quarter has been significantly higher.
That is a good point. the jump is still huge. That Christmas is huge.
Yeah, if you look at like the 2017, 2018, you could see that there's a small jump at the holidays, but
Yeah.
the jumps that have happened throughout the pandemic have been massive. And even though it didn't hit as high this year, it started slightly lower than it has in previous years going into the holiday season.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's that's like $4 billion.
Yeah.
That's an amount of money. I can't even imagine what that's like. Right. So from some of the data that Brian sent my way, I just put some things against each other, some numbers against each other. So this is the buyers divided by the sellers. So this is telling you for every seller, how many buyers are there on Etsy through the different years? And we can definitely see a bit of a trend from 2012 to 2018, 2020 at a push. There was growing more and more buyers for every seller, which is the good thing. Etsy was bringing in more buyers, and we were getting a bigger chunk of people to be able to buy from us.
Higher number on this chart is significantly better.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Going upwards is good. So 2021, 22, 23, that's gone in a not good direction. And what that means is for every single seller, there's less buyers to go around. Although there's far more buyers on Etsy, there's far more sellers. And I knew this was a case, but once I plotted it like this, I was like, that kind of actually shows that quite clearly. It's lower than 2012. So that possibly explains a little something of something, what some of us are all seeing.
And it's almost half of what 2020 was. 2020 was the big year of tons of sellers coming to Etsy, but even more buyers. Buyers doubled from about 45 million to 90 million or whatever the numbers are, versus sellers, which didn't go up quite that. They didn't double in size yet. And so that 2020 is just, that was peak selling season.
Yeah, 2020 is an outlier, and it's not a bad thing. Woodcrafter in your pocket saying if you take out the pandemic years, we're way above pre-pandemic for a lot of things, absolutely. And for the ratio of buyers to sellers, what kind of happens is when the pandemic hit, people were buying things and they had nowhere else to go. So they started to hear of Etsy and they started to buy. But then as they started to get a bit worried for their financial security, people start to think of a side hustle. And because they've just heard of Etsy, so some of these people that have just heard and have just been a buyer will start maybe becoming a seller. So it's a delayed thing. People start buying on it and then they're like, oh, hang on, I could maybe make some money here. So that's why this has happened. And yeah, sadly, I think just last week the UK announced it's in recession. EU countries are in recession. I think America's just trying to massage the numbers to not say those words, but I think they're there. And I'm not sure how you guys are doing, but I'm sure it's pretty similar.
Yeah, not great. Canada's not. We're not quite recession. We kind of follow the U.S. I'm in Canada, by the way, everyone. We kind of follow the US, whatever trends in the US about a year later, we follow suit. So
Yeah. You've got the same
great.
as us. If the US sneezes, we catch a cold. So
Yeah.
you're just a bit closer. Yeah. So in this is not my first rodeo with recession and global unpleasantnesses and things. What happens when people start to worry about things, when food becomes expensive, when you're unsure if you can pay your fuel bills, people look at a side hustle.
Yeah.
Or if people lose their job, they'll look at a way to make more money. So places like Etsy will get more sellers.
And people
Sadly,
were bored at home, and print on demand started picking up, just the different tools that were out there, and YouTubers pushing Etsy as a great place to sell stuff. and that just increased the number of sellers, but didn't really impact the number of buyers at all. No, none of these new sellers were bringing in buyers. They were coming in to try and like use Etsy's buyers that were already there. And so the buyers did not go up while sellers increased, dropping that ratio right down.
That's true. Like I started Etsy in 2008 and people there's a cat's butt on your face, yeah. But people hadn't heard of Etsy, so it was kind of our job to
Yep.
bring people in as well to Etsy. So every time a seller came in, they brought their family and friends with them. Whereas you're right, the barrier to entry has got lower. But if you check out the eRank live from an hour ago, Etsy's making some changes to make that barrier to entry a little bit harder. So it'll hopefully slow down the new dodgy sellers. But yes, it definitely, these new sellers that are coming in wanting an easy business aren't necessarily putting the work in to bring their own people with them, the same as we all had to in the early days.
Exactly.
GMS per buyer. So this is how much buyers, people who come to Etsy on average, how much they're spending on Etsy, the buyers. And that's positive since the pandemic. Yeah, that's a good looking thing. Since the pandemic, they're spending, well, that's like 10 times more than what they used to. It's still not $100 per person. Like people spend more on Etsy, for goodness sake.
It's more than double what it was pre-pandemic. Go back 10 years, it's more than 5 times as much. Like it's pretty good.
Yeah, there's a positive graph. We found one. Woodcrafter in Your Pockets asking, are there any stats on how many new sellers are still open a year later? Etsy doesn't really give us much data on the churn of sellers that I'm aware of. They talk about reactivated buyers and things. We do, when we are talking about the sellers, we do have to pay in mind there will be a massive amount of sellers who open a shop and never even make a sale. So
there's a lot of shops that never make a sale. There's a lot of shops that do get shut down as well. Especially in the past 2 years, a lot of shops have been completely suspended or banned. And those like all that we can see is the total number of active sellers, but they also don't specify what an active seller is. Does that mean that their shop has been open in the last year? Does that mean that they made a sale? We don't actually know. They could have put their shop on vacation mode 10 years ago and not come back. And is that still considered an active shop because it's still an active account? We're not sure.
Yeah, we don't know how the numbers are counted. Generally, I'm not slandering Etsy here, but for a kind of financial report, you would want to count your numbers in the way that makes them look the best without outright lying. But so it is possibly that the number of sellers is higher than what we might count it to be, because it sounds good to have a lot of sellers on a platform.
Which is also weird that they use the word sellers. It's probably for investor purposes, but that would be the number of active sellers that they're calling it is actually the number of active shops. So if I have 5 shops, I'm 5 different sellers according to those numbers.
Each of your personality can have its own shop there.
Exactly. Yes. But a lot of people have multiple shops. So those 9 million active sellers, that could be 5 million actual sellers and just 9 million shops. We don't know. That information is not actually given to us.
Yeah, true. I never thought of that. And here's the one that is what it happens, what the money actually feels like to us. It's the GMS, how much Etsy is making in sales per seller. So the average amount that each shop, each seller should be able to make if everybody made the exact same amount of money. I hope most of you made more than average. I made more than average. I didn't make loads, but it's frighteningly low. In 2012, it was just over, this isn't billions or millions, it was just over $1,000 per seller per year. That is the average you could expect to make on Etsy. Whenever I pull these numbers out, people are like, no way it's that low.
But again, because we don't have the number of sellers or number of shops with 0 sales that have opened and just sat there, these numbers might seem a little bit skewed, but there's a lot of sellers that made $0 last year or made $10 last year.
Exactly. Yep. It will be for an active shop. This is the thing we see in eRank all the time. We have a congratulations, your shop has made more sales than 90% of other shops. And people are like, but I've only sold, I don't know the numbers, it's like 200 items. How can this be? And it's because most shops sell nothing. So
yeah.
Hopefully, if you've got a bit of momentum behind your shop, hopefully you're making more than that average. It skews the results down quite a bit. But we can definitely see the peak. As we said, a lot of new buyers came in 2020 without the number of sellers. So in 2020, the peak was just below 2,500. And in 2023, there is no doubt that has dropped.
Yeah.
That's dropped. The last time it was that low was 2014. So if you're struggling, it's not saying people can't do well on Etsy, but it is a lot harder just now.
You have to fight a lot harder for your piece of the pie, because the pie is the exact same size. The pie has been the same size since 2020, essentially. The same amount of the same $13 billion has come into the marketplace, but there's a lot more sellers grabbing at that pie, so it takes a lot more to grab your piece.
Yep. And to be honest, what quite a lot of us have to do, stand out, keep moving forwards, and keep our heads down, because it gets better. Is all we can say when these kind of financial things happen. We just have to do the best that we can. It's difficult for everybody.
I don't know if it's the same on your side of the pond, but over here there's still the battle of, do we go back to work or do we stay working from home? Once it becomes work from work, we'll see the number of active sellers start to drop as well.
Exactly. Yeah. People are probably like running their side hustle and like sitting in the Zoom meeting going, ka-ching, oh, whoops, I've got to do the thing here. Exactly. I wasn't going to share this slide, but Product Man 13 says the chart is spot on for my shop. So I just did a silly thing here, and this is my revenue over the years. It's not perfectly lined up or perfectly to scale, but when I pulled up that GMS per seller, I thought, hang on, that looks very familiar. That's my how much money I made each year, and that chart looks really familiar. I made more money in years that Etsy were doing well. Who knew? But as Brian was saying before we came on, correlation doesn't equal causation, but it's probably got a little to do with it here. When it's tougher on Etsy, I don't do as well because I don't stand out as nicely as some other people necessarily.
I don't think it's that you don't stand out as much. It's your product is a lot more luxury versus a necessity. So like in 2020, masks were a necessity. So you just saw a whole plethora of people spending money on masks. There's certain items that are more sought after in times of recession versus things that are not.
Exactly. That is another thing, that luxuries are the first to go. I've said forever that one thing on Etsy that people aren't opening enough shops for is supplies, craft supplies and things, because we've just seen there's tons of extra sellers coming in and they're wanting things to sell. So that is
like the top shops, other than Caitlin Minimalist, the top shops are generally bead sellers right now. They have millions of sales. They have hundreds of thousands of sales a month, and they're getting that because they're selling supplies. Supplies are hot. There's so much more room for supply sellers, but not many people are doing it for some reason. I think it's because it takes more investment to be a supply seller, because you have to have all that stuff on hand versus a creator where you create it made to order. So the barrier to entry is a lot higher, but it seems like sales are significantly better.
Yeah. And right, I'm never gonna advise that people go to whatever their cheap craft place around the corner is and buy the cheapest stuff and do a markup or order stuff from Temu or something. But where you are has things that other people can't have. Especially now, just talking about bead makers, there isn't anymore, but there used to be a lovely little craft village not far from me that had this guy that sat and did glasswork that you could sit and watch. Now, if I did a deal with him and bought beads off of him to sell, that would be great supplies, beautifully handmade stuff that nobody else can get. So look for things that are totally different in your area. That could be really interesting. Bella Rose is saying she sells scrapbook supplies. I've said to my mum forever, she has those fantastic cutting machines that does all the sort of things for card making and stuff, and she makes her own cards. But you could also make kits that have all the things that people just need to glue together to make, because people like to think they're making stuff.
Yeah.
And those machines are a big investment. But if you're cutting things out for one card, you could cut them out for 5 and make a kit with the remaining 4 or something.
Well, even on your channel, a lot of your lives used to be you were needle felting from a kit. You weren't just
Yeah.
taking a ball and working on it, you were doing kits. And kits sell.
Yeah, people want that thing. And
Well,
right,
that's a huge thing is food kits.
mhm,
Everybody's buying HelloFresh or all of the other ones because there's it's just easier. It's easier than having to go and buy all of the supplies yourself separately. Kits, kits, kits. Everybody get into kits.
absolutely. They are such a underutilized thing. And yeah, guys, everyone who's a crafter, hands up if you don't have at least a cupboard full of stuff that projects you meant to do and you never did. Yep. I say at least a cupboard because I know people who buy bigger houses because they've got rooms full of these things. So, my mum's done not on Etsy, but she's done really well on eBay selling off some of her extra stuff because she bought it 10 years ago and it's now rare and she didn't know. She puts it up on eBay and people are fighting over it. It's like, that's been thrown on the floor for a decade. Who knew? Yeah.
Yeah, and Bella
Um,
said that she does kits as well.
Yeah, cool. See, it's a good thing. Woodcrafter, is there a way to separate out the print on demand sellers and find the best sellers? It's difficult. I wish Etsy would implement something where on Etsy you could filter for print on demand because it's not a bad thing. Like if people want to buy print on demand stuff, but I remember back in the day, I used to see people who were doing like the ladder ripped items, distressed stuff, tie-dyed, actual clothing that they were making themselves. How do I find things like that on Etsy now? And that's the stuff that I want.
I'm
Yeah, Cherie.
surprised that they don't even separate supplies. They only
Mhm.
separate vintage versus handmade, and that's it.
Yeah.
They
Yeah,
need more
that's so
categories
annoying.
like that.
Yeah, it would be good to be able to find things. We should actually I just realized we haven't even looked at the presentation
Oh
yet.
yeah.
That thing that we were gonna talk about. But we can still Brian can still see chat. No, I can still see chat. I can still see Brian's little face. So I've skipped the first slides of the presentation that don't say anything.
And the
I do
font
have
is
my
way too small to read anyways on those first pages. You don't need it.
Oh yeah. I did make notes, but I won't remember them. Um, yeah, I did say quarter 4 was better than expected, which is good. It's not as bad as you think. The problem, 100%, the problem is that Etsy has shareholders.
Yeah.
That Etsy's not going bad, as someone said at the very start. If you took out the pandemic spike, where Etsy's at now is amazing compared to where it would be expected to be. Um, They did say records for Cyber Monday and Gifting Tuesday, but they didn't give us any numbers for it, which is interesting. But and one thing that did, for those that don't know, I listened to the investor call. So this is where I'm getting some of my things from. They did say a lot of things that Etsy wants to stand out as different from the competition, as having quality handmade stuff. Does kind of annoy me that they highlight like 60% off sales when they're trying to be different from. But anyway, that's yeah. But
And generally, if you're a handmade seller and you're taking 60% off, then you probably haven't priced your item correctly to begin with.
yeah, 60% is a lot. And I will say, any of the sales, Etsy did actually just release a list of the sales that are coming up. I think I linked it in the description of this video. If I didn't, I'll go back and do it later. Etsy's doing regular sales, but you don't have to do them if they don't work for your business model. And you didn't have to do 60% off to be in the cyber sale or stuff. Do what works for you, because goodness, the people that did that, I'd be worried for you.
And they only listed the large sales, like the Mother's Day sales and that type of thing. They didn't let us know when the if any of the coupon codes are coming back, like the save $5 if you spend 50, those types of things. They haven't let us know about those. They usually let us know morning of.
Yeah, they usually let us know a couple hours after it's already started. Yes,
but in that forum post, it did say that they're going to they're going to be adding to that. So bookmark that page because they're going to be adding to it. So hopefully that means they're going to be adding those to it prior to them actually dropping the sale.
Yeah, it would be super nice to get a bit of warning. I'm not against the idea of Etsy giving our customers money, but I'd like to be able to tell my customers it's coming up. So here's the numbers that we saw that were plotted into the graph. The GMS, consolidated GMS, which I think includes Reverb and Depop as well.
And Evo 7.
Yeah, Evo 7 were sold, but I think, yeah, it's still some of them's included. But it's because this is like the Facebook thing. Etsy is Etsy, and it's also the family of other companies, but they don't add very much yet. They're quite a lot smaller.
Yeah, it looks like, just to clarify that number, it looks like 11.6 billion of that was for Etsy, 942 million was Reverb, 599 was Depop, and 42 million was Elo 7.
Awesome. Yeah, so the biggest chunk of that is Etsy.
By like 12 times.
Yeah. Yeah, so we can pretty much say this is Etsy and a little bit. This is your revenue. That's the money Etsy's making from making the sales. So fees, Etsy ads, if you're doing Etsy Plus or Premium or whatever it's Etsy Plus. Yep. So that's 2.7 billion. EBITDA is earnings before taxes and stuff. I don't worry about these numbers. This is their tax tax stuff. And I don't even know what consolidated FCF is.
I have no idea.
That's a new one. EBITDA used to be the last one. But yeah, a lot of this is, as we said, is shareholder things. What we want to worry about is how much was sold on Etsy and how much Etsy made is kind of nice to keep a track of.
And I know that it seems like, oh, Etsy's charging too much for fees if they're making $2.7 billion. But that's the money that goes to support staff. That's the money that goes to all of the other things that they're doing. And so if Etsy makes more money, that ends up benefiting us in the end.
Yeah, that's not profit. That's how much money they made. They have running costs. I don't even want to know. Their running costs are a bit bigger than my shop's running costs.
Their operating expenses were $471 million last year. So their net income was 83 million. So they made 83 million profit last year after paying all their staff and all the other expenses. So that's
Yeah.
not that much money.
I'd take some of it, but no, they're I believe they're using a lot of that for buyback of shares and things at the
Yes.
minute in time. I don't understand all of that, but the good news is we don't have to. um, so this is nice. They're comparing 2019 to now, and I think they're right to look at this because the pandemic was the problem is Etsy been a victim of its own success. Etsy did better than anybody else practically during the pandemic because it jumped onto the masks when Amazon was saying, "Oh, you can't sell masks." Everyone else took a back seat and said, "We can't do this." Etsy said, "Well, you can sell them, but you just can't say that they they do anything medicinal," which is absolutely fair enough. They saw what was coming and said, "Hey, if you can make them because people need them." So because Etsy had this big chunk that did so well, it's making everything else look bad. So they are right to compare to 2019 and say, hey, come on, everything's doing good. So yeah, there's
While Amazon had a huge climb in that time, eBay did not. eBay kind of remained flat, and Etsy in most markets is actually above eBay now because eBay
yeah,
just didn't capitalize on the pandemic the way that Etsy did.
yeah, eBay's definitely slipping. And I think definitely at the start, Etsy was growing faster than Amazon. It's nowhere near Amazon, but it was growing faster. It did really good. So it's nice to see people are habitual buyers is ones that come back and shop a few times. And as we said, people are spending more. So that's all positive things.
I actually didn't notice that one, the habitual buyers. 7.1 million people out of the 90 million, so that's 15% or so, came back and purchased more than once, which
Yep.
is, I mean, that's great. That's what we're looking
Yeah.
for. You don't want a buyer that just buys once. You want a buyer for life. So the fact that people keep coming back and back, that 15% approximately are coming back that's a great number to know.
Yeah. You won't be able to read this on the screen, but it's a cool one. Habitual buyers are buyers who've spent $200 or more and made purchases on 6 or more days in the previous 12 months. So that's a pretty good like we know that people aren't spending that much and spending that much time. So those 7 million are the good ones that keep coming back to Etsy. So
7
that's
million out of 90 million, that's huge.
and
I
that is
would say
part
so.
of that is what Etsy's focus is just now. So I can't have a big go at them because that is working.
Yep.
Their idea is they want to be front of mind for people when they want to buy gifts to keep coming back to Etsy. So okay, that's a good point. That is working. This is just kind of what we were talking about. The red line here is Etsy's growth over time compared to the other, what they call the core marketplaces. This is other similar type of things. They do tell us at the end of the presentation who they're comparing to, but you can see how much Etsy grew in the pandemic. So this is a growth chart. So it looks bad because Etsy's below the core markets just now, but it only looks bad because we had that big stinking spike. So yeah, that's what's hurt us because people look at growth and people shouldn't look at. And when I say people, investors shouldn't look at these numbers. They should know how to look at numbers better.
Yep. Like the growth was important to get the marketplace on the map, but now it's on the map, so it doesn't need to keep growing.
Yep.
It needs to keep growing somewhat, but it doesn't need to have that massive spike because everyone that knows about Etsy pretty much knows about Etsy already.
Exactly. Yep. Oh, I want to ask something because there was something I can't remember where the slide comes up, but it won't play. But has anyone had anyone buy something for them with gift mode or used gift mode? Because they showed something in a little video that they played that I won't be able to play from the presentation. But basically, it was saying gift mode, and I hadn't heard, I might have just missed this. But when you buy something through gift mode, you say who it's being sent to, and then that person gets an email saying you're getting a gift from Etsy and stuff. So I hadn't heard of that, but that's a cool different feature to like gets the excitement to say you're getting something, but it also says you're getting something from Etsy. So that's
Yeah, haven't seen that yet.
no, I'm glad it's not. I didn't just miss it. I was like, hang on, I've never heard of that. So there's a different experience if you actually use the gift mode, or there's planning for them to be. Yeah, I hate graphs like this where they do above and below the line and don't explain what anything actually means. Orange is US Etsy marketplaces, and blue is category specific US e-commerce retailers. And I think it's showing the growth or lack of growth in the last year. So it's kind of saying Etsy's doing okay and doing less badly in home and living.
Than the average sellers of home and living products. Yeah.
Yep. It looks like it's not doing so well in jewelry and accessories, but apparel, print on demand, is doing amazing. It's the only thing that's had positive growth. So Etsy's not going to get rid of print on demand, but and I don't think they should, but just let us filter. If you want to buy that, let us look for that. Craft supplies is doing less bad. Party and paper looks like it's doing pretty comparatively pretty good, and toys and games pretty good is how I'm reading that. But yeah, they don't give us easy things to look at there.
But it looks like if you make apparel that you should market yourself well, but it is that print on demand and trying to separate yourself from print on demand sellers. If you print your own shirts or whatever, you need to show a video of you making it, really highlight that it's handmade, because otherwise it does get mixed in with all of the other print on demand, and
yeah,
there's so much of it now.
that's I can't say it enough, but if you're wanting to start selling on Etsy or wanting to start selling something else, don't think, oh, print on demand will be easy. Look at all these shops making loads of sales. Every day I see masses of shops starting up as print on demand shops or been around as print on demand shops, and they're making no sales. It's very, very tough. Do it if you have a really good specific niche, but don't expect to slap simple designs or random words on a t-shirt and do great. I think the time for that has passed.
Yeah.
Okay, here's I know what's coming next. We're just going to skip this slide because the next one has the little sneaky peek that Etsy mentioned. They just went by this without saying anything. So this is how they're wanting to get more people come into Etsy, basically. But the consideration they brought to make people think of Etsy more, so they've brought out the gift mode and they're pushing for it heavily. There's no way to get around it. I think we do have to think about gift things. Something that was mentioned in the horrible webinar a couple of hours ago that Etsy just did about SEO and stuff. But they were talking about things like make a feature if you can offer gift wrapping and, all these kind of things. So if you do these things, make sure note about it. Give people the option if you can. I can't offer gift wrapping. It's like giving a kitten sellotape. It's not going to happen, but maybe I'll get pretty boxes.
But what's this loyalty program?
It was just like gift mode and the new loyalty program. What? You haven't announced that yet, mate. So that's about. There was a brief mention in the Q&A afterwards, but it was literally the same thing. Oh yeah, the up and coming loyalty program. Now, all that I got out of that is obviously it's going to be for buyers. It will be, I'm guessing, an Etsy-wide thing, not a shop-specific thing. There's no way, though. They want to capture people for Etsy. They don't want to capture people for Brian's shop or something. So, but it's a cool thing. And quality, they want to make it easier to find the good stuff on Etsy. I know. I hear it all the time. People are saying that search is not good. But he did make a very valid point. They are training the AI up on what they consider quality items. So if your item got an Etsy Pick badge in the past year or so, that's their staff looking and telling the AI, this is what we think is a nice looking item. Can you learn what good items are? But what I hadn't thought of that does make a bunch of sense, he's got our normal search engine thing with all the personalizations isn't the AI. That's your black box search engine clever thing. And then you've got the AI for the what's a good thing, and they've got to find a way to get the two to talk to each other. So that's that's the thing that they're struggling with just now. So I guess
Training algorithms and AIs and everything takes a lot longer than people would think.
yeah, and AI isn't very intelligent.
No. You have to feed it a lot of data, and it still only knows what you've shown it. So if there's any outliers, if there's any other use cases, it's completely lost.
And you can work on it for many years with tons of data, and it still spits out seven fingers all the time.
That's the thing. It has seen like billions and billions of hands, but still doesn't understand how a hand works. That a hand looks different like this, like this, like it can't understand it yet, even though it's been fed billions of hands, because it needs more training. It needs to understand. And so Etsy needs their AI to understand what it's looking at, but then also mix that into the algorithm. It takes a lot of work, and a lot of much smarter people than us are working on it, but it does take a lot of time.
Yeah. And all of this is the worst that it's ever going to be just now. It is only going to get better, but it's getting better at an annoying rate. The search isn't the best just now. I think we noticed that. The great value, this one annoys me. I think we all know this annoys me. Highlighting and promoting great value, because he did mention they are saying Etsy is different. We don't like this race to the bottom and everything. But
That's
yeah, they
literally
still
what great value is.
yeah. And there was a quick mention with a more predictable delivery cost. They didn't mention anything with the cost. I would love if that just means they're going to be showing, rather than free shipping, but they'll just show the entire price of the item to you, including shipping. That would be cool and very easy to do. But he did mention they're planning on looking at ways to bring down the shipping times. And I don't know how that's going to work because they're not a shipping carrier.
Yeah. Unless they're looking at doing like Amazon's fulfillment center kind of thing. That's possible. It's weird for handmade items because most items are made to order, but I mean, that is possible.
Yeah. Oh, it's in reliability. Machine learning investments in delivery speed.
Oh.
Does that make sense to anybody? All I can think is, rather than delivery speed, it's the processing time. They might be squeezing us a bit there, but
it seems like they're going to be running algorithms to figure out actual delivery times, because right now it's just, well, USPS says it's 3 to 5 days, so we're going to say it's 3 to 5 days. But if things are moving at 7 days, then maybe they're going to update it. If it's moving at 2 days, maybe they're going to update. So it might be better live tracking kind of thing.
Yeah. Hey, we'll see.
They did promise that in the US over the holidays, is that if there's delays, that would be reflected in the delivery times. So it's possible that that's what they're going to be implementing everywhere and get better at it.
Yeah. I suppose machine learning as well, that could be predicting things could be bogged up a bit because it's Christmas kind of things. They mentioned nothing about this cross-border in Europe. I would love if they helped us with the German and the French packaging regulations, because I can't
They
figure
give
that out.
zero information. Everything you get, you have to either figure out yourself or reach into the groups and see anyone who's done it. I have not figured out the France one yet. The German one I found to be pretty easy, but the France one is I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't even know what to look for. There's not one single program to do it versus in Germany there is, and it's just easier, but it's a lot.
Yeah. I
They
mean,
should
I
have more of
totally,
a step by step or a guide or like links to where you need to go, and they just don't yet.
yeah, that's it. It would be much easier for them to do it once and say, "What do we need to do?" And
Yeah.
then we can just all follow that. I absolutely have no problem with these places having recycling plans in place and stuff. I'd just like to understand it better. And
I'm
also,
surprised with
this
how big Etsy is, especially with the growing international market, especially in Europe. I'm surprised they haven't partnered with one of these services that guide you through it, and like that should be one of the integrations.
it would be so easy, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
just came up with that right
And
now. So Etsy, if you're listening,
yeah, of course,
that
they
would be
absolutely are. One of the 52 people here is Etsy. Um, but another simple thing, I was testing Folksy, which is a UK-based one, and they just had the simplest thing. If you didn't put in your Lucid registration number, which is the German one, then you don't ship to Germany.
That's what I thought that I honestly thought when I first saw that Etsy was implementing that, I thought that that's what they were going to do. Where if you don't have your Lucid number or EPR number, that people just from those countries just can't purchase from you. That is not the case.
No, exactly. Yeah, it just made it so easy. When I went onto Folksy, I was like, yeah, I ship to Europe. I haven't put in these numbers, so I just ship to the rest of Europe until I can figure all of that out. It is something I mean to be. Yeah, so Etsy is pushing this gifting stuff isn't going away, guys. This is going to be their focus for the big chunk of this year. And they want as the indispensable partner means people come and buy a thing from Etsy. They want them to keep coming back. It's like I came for the birthday, I came for Christmas, and that's fair. Etsy should be a good place for gifts.
Yep.
And they did some surveys which I haven't compared, but pretty similar to the surveys that eRank did as well. So we did them to find out what holidays people are thinking of shopping for and stuff. But yeah, there's all year, there's peak holidays like Christmas and Mother's Day and everything, but nearly half of what people are shopping for is also things that are going to be spread all through the year, like birthday gifts or pet things. So that's kind of good for us because it's steady income.
I'm kind of surprised that New Home made it to the personal events list. That's great. I
Yeah.
guess there's a lot of home decor and that kind of thing. That's great.
Yeah, that's handy for people. There's, I mean, I suppose that's like cards and things as well, but home decor, your little hostess kind of gifts and all sorts of things.
I'm a little upset that they didn't have Hanukkah as one of the holidays, but that's okay. That's fine. 7 days of gifts, but who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, sadly they just they chunk everything in, don't they? And well, I think with a lot of places, I think yeah, they did have just right at the top. That
Christmas
this covers it. They had holidays.
too. Yeah, okay, fine.
That's everything we forgot. Um,
No
I
Secretary's Day, no nothing. Like they miss
they
every
had
all of them.
Teachers' Day. You know, I don't buy gifts for any of these things. I barely buy Christmas gifts. Come on. But yeah, this was kind of interesting. It's based on their estimates and surveys and things, but they reckon in the US, the average person spends $1,600 a year on gifts, and I bet it's a lot more for many people. Yeah.
Jesus.
And they spend $38 on Etsy for gifts. So Etsy has about a 1% share of the gifts in the US, and they'd like to double it.
Which is not bad because it doesn't look like the 1600 is only online. online
Mhm.
and offline categories including. So that's all gifts. That's not just online gifts and Etsy only has a small portion. They have a small portion of all gifts purchased, which is crazy. That's a lot.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's it's pretty cool. Do you know, this is the stupidest thing. When I was looking at this earlier, I spent too long. Let me know if anyone else did this. 10% to the third, 10% cubed. Yeah. No, that's just based on third-party US data. 10% of US buyers think of Etsy. But yeah, I was trying to think, did you have algebra different than we did or something?
Spontaneously think of Etsy for gifts.
That is very weird. Um, there's the numbers for Depop and Reverb. Not much to say there. Depop's doing quite well. It's up year on year, so yay. There. And this is Etsy's Keep Commerce Human. Oh, they had another phrase that Josh came up with. Oh, yes, it was make Etsy more Etsy. um, which I see, they were speaking the good words that I want to hear. It's basically, don't race to the bottom, try and stand out and be different because we've got quality items. Make Etsy more Etsy, which to me says make it more like what it used to be. But then they show 60% off sales and things. But the words were right. I think we're coming to the end of anything much, but we'll skip through these, and then I will. Sorry, chat. I have been absolutely forgetting about you. I've had a very long 24 hours. This is my third live in 24 hours and all sorts of things. But here's the numbers with the graphs that are nowhere near as nice as my graphs. Pretty much the same thing.
I mean, they have blue graphs on a blue background. I mean, who does that?
Yes, critique the graphs. Here's the thing that people kind of are interested in seeing. I'm not exactly sure what incremental revenue means. I think it's like the growth in revenue. I think they never tell us, but anyway, sort of revenue share or whatever it is, but they do a breakdown of where it's all coming from. So Etsy ads is a big chunk of where Etsy are making their money from. They did say they're making more money from ads because they're able to show ads in more places. It's a simple thing. Ads are offsite ads are costing Etsy a lot more money because there's a lot more competition. On Etsy, there's a lot more competition. A lot more people are panicking and spending more money on ads, which makes the ads more expensive. So Etsy ads are making more money, basically. I don't know what consolidated payments are. Higher other revenue was talking about the increasing
Consolidated payments, I believe, is the like Klarna and stuff like that, where you can make payments. It actually costs you a little bit to do that, and so they're making slightly more doing that.
That's a big chunk, but that was good of them taking that on. I didn't know that would do that good. The higher other revenue is the fees, but also another thing they mentioned, which is why they're pushing for international sellers to do more. Sales between different countries in different currencies make Etsy money because of the currency conversion. They mentioned they make more money from sales across borders, basically. So that was a cool thing. Yeah, and there's a little drop because the GMS is less, so there's less in ads, fees, clamor, all that kind of thing. Yeah, these graphs is when I see like consolidated, that just says to me we massaged numbers to make them look the way we wanted. Not having a go at Etsy here. I just want to put this for anyone looking at stats and things. I hate a graph that doesn't have any scales on it because they lie, basically. But yeah, nothing new. They're just showing graphs. showing graphs. Oh, this is market price. I got a little angry at this one. I'll show you why. This is the Etsy marketplace product development. So this is kind of the team doing product development and stuff. Product development spend was pretty much the same. Marketplace increased product development launches. We know they're doing new things. We've seen gift mode and stuff coming up here. But this number is growth in revenue per head count since 2019, not taking into account the people they just laid off.
Fair.
Do I actually have to say? It went up the way, guys, and they still laid off 11% of the staff. I think I'm reading that correctly.
I believe so, because the layoffs happened, does not include the 11% workforce reduction related to Etsy's marketplace restructuring plan. Yep. No, you're right. You're 100% right. They were making more per head of staff, and then they cut all the staff.
Yeah. So the people worked hard to make more money.
Yeah. and now the people that are still working there are bringing in that number. That number would actually be a lot higher now, which is not a good thing because they're just overworked, and sellers are generally the ones that suffer.
Yep. I did promise I wouldn't be too negative on this, but I look at these things sometimes and I'm just like, I hate companies having shareholders because it does things like this. Whereas if you didn't have shareholders to answer to, you could say, yeah, things are tough, but we're doing okay.
And that's one of the reasons Etsy is trying to buy back their shares.
Exactly. Yes. For anyone interested in these kind of numbers, marketing spend as a percent of revenue. Oh, I keep remembering things that were said in the investor report. I will first of all go back in time to a video I made a while ago where we looked into the Crafters Code Etsy blog, talking about how Etsy ads cost per click is calculated. And that is calculated on, they try and figure out how much you're likely to make in sales. Machine learning, try and figure it out for each time. So what they want to try and do is make sure that you never, on average, over a long period of time, you don't spend more than you're going to make in your sales, which means you'll be at a loss because you've got supplies and everything, but you don't spend more. So it's a 1-to-1. And Josh actually stood up and talked about how Etsy ads are getting, offsite ads are getting more expensive, advertising's hard, everything's difficult, but they always look at this and they are never going to do something that will have an ROI, return on investment of 1 or anything like that. So they are never going to pay for ads that are as inefficient as the Etsy ads they sell to us, kind of. That, yeah. But anyway, but this is a good thing that they're making sure that the ads that they're paying for have a decent return, basically. Yep. So that's all good, and they do have clever algorithms looking into the expected return and how much, you know, how good it is. Because like brand marketing, if you advertise like the Super Bowl, you can't say quite that brought us this many people, but you can say this brought more people aware of Etsy over the years. So it's difficult to quantify. So it's a lot cleverer than we can do. Annual total marketing spend. Yep. So there is, in blue is the marketing spend, and the little line is marketing spend as percent of revenue. So, yeah, they definitely didn't overspend after the pandemic. They did a good thing and spent more in 2020, and that absolutely worked. But I don't think there's much.
Still be working.
Yeah, exactly. It looks all right. They're doing a sensible thing with the ad spending. I can't say much there. Oh, here you go.
For my shops.
Sorry?
It's done well for my shops. Doing well with
Yeah,
your
you're
beds.
cool, cool. Yeah, mine used to do good. It's quieting down, but I've been very lazy in my shop. Um, yeah, nice little thing showing us. Orange here is US domestic GMS and blue is non-US. So we're almost at, yeah, you say, oh, well, I'm not getting shown in the US, and the US is a massive marketplace, but the rest of the world is, if you can ship internationally, there, it might be worth it for some people.
Yep.
It's not as difficult to ship internationally as you think.
No, there's just the few. There's just France and Germany essentially, and then there's a couple countries where their shipping systems are just really horrible, and there's no tracking once it hits the border, all that type of stuff. But otherwise, shipping is, it's the thing that freaks most people out because a lot of people, especially the newer generation, have never even sent a letter, and so they've never shipped anything before, and it's a lot easier than people think. And international has become so much easier than it was 20 years ago. So there's really no reason not to open yourself up unless you're selling something like seeds or something that can't cross borders. You might as well just open it up and see what happens, because 47% of the market is outside of the US.
Exactly. And do you know, it's just really cool to see countries getting ticked off on your map. I've always enjoyed seeing where my little fuzzies get to go that I've never been to. Every continent apart from
Antarctica.
Antarctica. Yes. So, so if anyone's in Antarctica and watching, I'll happily sell you a fuzzy. Yep. Growth in apparel, paper and parties was offset by the softness in home and living, jewelry and craft supplies, which is sort of what we saw from a graph way up. Paper and party and apparel was looking kind of good, which are print on demand, kind of.
But those people selling greeting cards and all that type of stuff, odds are you're not one of the people complaining that sales are slow. The ones that are saying sales are slow are generally in jewelry, home and living, and accessories and craft supplies.
Yeah, down a bit. Yep.
Because they didn't do kits. They're just selling regular things and not selling kits. Sell kits, people. Sell kits.
Yeah, sell kits. And from kits, you can do tutorials, and then you can put your tutorials on YouTube and TikTok and get monetized doing your tutorials. And yeah, you get you get more money for the same amount of work eventually. Oh yeah, there we go. New buyers, reactivated buyers, 92 million active buyers. Oh, there's a nice little number. 6% more men.
And that's also what they were aiming for with the Super Bowl ads, which we won't see those numbers until the next quarter, until the next quarter's release. But like, more men are buying, so that's probably also why they're pushing gift mode, because men can be buying for themselves, but odds are a lot of it's for gifts. And so they're really pushing the gift mode for that reason, to get that 6% even higher.
Absolutely. It's a stereotype, but it does kind of work that guys are the ones that buy a little late, buy a bit panicky, like, I don't know what I want, gift mode. So yeah, it's a stereotype. I'm terrible as well. So yeah, habitual buyers and repeat buyers. It's okay. Habitual buyers is going down a little bit actually. But we did say that number is pretty cool. That's the ones that buy, what was it? Yeah, 12 times a year or something.
6 times a year and have spent over $200.
Cool. Yep. And repeat buyers has gone up a wee bit. So, but yeah, this is what Eatsy's wanting to get more of, is people coming back, buying their gifts and keeping coming back and buying their gifts.
That's the ideal thing to do. And that's in your packaging. You put your business card and there's that brand recognition, and that's what you're hoping for in your own shop. Etsy's hoping for that across the entire marketplace.
Yeah, and let's face it, if that's Eatsy's focus, if you're a fly-by-night shop that sells a load of things and vanishes, that won't be as cool as a shop that keeps bringing back. I mean, we know on your on your dashboard, well, in Etsy, it does tell you if this is a repeat buyer.
Yep, there's
So
a little star.
it's aware. Yeah. So that's anything that's tracked, anything that's measured, Etsy can track. I don't know that they do, but would they hate the shops that are doing the very thing that they want them to do? It's something we all want anyway. Okay, I don't desperately care about Etsy's capital and cash flow and things. Etsy's not going under anytime soon. I think that's
like a
about
lot
all
of people were predicting 2 years ago, I think it was, when the Etsy stock dropped quite a bit. Everyone was predicting Etsy's done. Etsy's going to be closing down soon. Everyone's screwed. And it's like, no, they have cash. They're good.
Oh yeah, every single change, like every week, someone's saying, "Oh, Etsy shares are down. Etsy stock's down." Yeah, it's wobbling
and then
about.
next week it's up, and then it's down, and then it's up. Like every single stock. If every stock went up, that's not really playing the stock market. That's low risk mutual funds at that point.
Yeah, and what I hear all of the time is Etsy's going under because Josh has sold his shares. Josh gets paid in shares and he sells them, so he has money. So you'll
like
see
the rest of us, he requires money.
Odd that, isn't it? Yes. This is what I said. Etsy using its free cash to buy back shares. That's a business thing. It's what they promised to do.
And it's literally making Etsy again. That's part of what Josh promised, is buying back the share set. They don't have to abide by what shareholders want. They can do what they feel is best for they could do what us sellers, they could listen to us more because they don't have to listen to the investors. So that's a positive thing. Even though money's leaving Etsy's hands to go into that, it's better for the rest of us. So the lower the stock drops means the lower it costs them to buy those stocks.
That's true. It's all good, unless you were relying on your Etsy shares for your retirement. I don't think my half an Etsy share is going to be very good for me retiring. So yeah, it would be lovely if Etsy didn't have shareholders. Oh, I think we've come to the end of the interesting.
Although because they're shareholders, we have all this information.
That's true. Yeah, that is a good point. We wouldn't have to have all of this information. Right, guys, if anyone had any great questions, can you ask them again? I will. Sorry, I've been ignoring the chat. I get very distracted. Too many webinars. And what have I done? I've watched 2 Etsy webinars. I've given a webinar, and I've been on 2 lives in 24 hours. So I forget what I've even been saying.
That's a lot of staring at screens.
Yes, I need to get out and go for a walk tomorrow, don't I? Yeah.
It was 10 degrees here today. I don't know if you guys are experiencing a mild winter, but it's been great.
It wasn't bad. I did actually get outside as well today. It was quite pleasant, although they are predicting a snow bomb again. But I think they do that to sell papers.
Papers and shovels. It's big paper and shovel. They're the ones that are trying to screw everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm trying to read and speak at the same time. So this is where the chat gets really good, when I lose the ability to speak coherent sentences.
Fantastic Mio said, "Oh, yeah, do that one." Right. I was just at the bottom while you were up top.
Oh, right. That sounds odd. But yeah, just the return to office has made me more intent on finding a side hustle. I hate commutes and living in a city. Oh yeah, I haven't done the rat race for a long time, and I don't think I could. I dislike lots of people nowadays. That sounds like hell.
That's the beauty of working for yourself or working from home, is you have zero contact with other humans other than the contact that you want. It's amazing. Highly recommended.
This is how I see my coworkers through this, and this is my commute. My bedroom is just like 2 doors over, so it's hard work. For for an unusual thing for a Thursday evening where I'm doing an E-Rank stream, and I've never done my own stream afterwards, but I'm not wearing pajama bottoms. I'm wearing actual clothes, but yeah, you don't even have to get all that dressed.
I might not even be wearing pants. You don't even know.
And we don't need to know. That's the good thing. Yeah.
The beauty of the internet. You don't need to know.
Yeah, with Crafter in your pocket, there's no distinction between a print-on-demand seller and a person actually printing the items at home. It would be nice to know. Yeah, I remember you used to see Etsy would even do like podcasts and videos talking about people that had in their little room, they had the little printing press and they had all the t-shirts that they'd hung up and things. And yeah, that was so cool. It's not as easy, but
you can showcase that within your own shop, but getting people into your shop knowing that it's handmade, it's very hard to do with that one profile picture and like the first 20 to 30 characters of your title. It's very hard to distinguish yourself as someone who's actually making the product versus a print on demand.
Yeah. I think if you're doing something like that, firstly, let us know. That's a cool sounding shop. But if you're doing something like that, that's something for social media or actual real life media, like your local TV or papers might be interested in seeing that.
Yep.
And that is a cool marketing strategy that where if you do something really cool and different, your local media might want to see it.
Bye, Deb. Have a great evening.
Oh, see you, Deb. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I know it's getting late for you. Gotta spend a nice evening with the hubby.
It's only 5:30. I'm pretty sure she's in the same time zone as me. It's early.
Yeah.
Sun is still out. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to bed. I think she's just going to have tea with her hubby. Amy reckons the loyalty program may be Share and Save. It's a loyalty program for sellers. It's true they didn't say. We just assumed. Yeah, it could be because they didn't mention Share and Save anyway. I hope not.
Although that's like, well, it is kind of a loyalty program because it keeps sellers like us sending people to Etsy instead of to our own websites because there's very little difference at that point. But but as far as investors go, that's actually a negative because that's 4% less that's going into their potential pockets. So I don't know.
That's true. Maybe
but
they
it means
won't
that we're
bring
pushing more. It might even out in the end. Who knows?
Yeah, they probably won't
clear.
bring that up in the investors report until they can say, hey, this has increased the number of people coming in.
Yeah.
They want to mention it when it's positive.
This is how many people who have never purchased on Etsy before that use the Share and Save link. That's the stat that they want to show.
Yep. CJ, hi there. You just unclick France and Germany when shipping profiles for Europe because I'd mentioned about the Lucid things.
Yep.
I think that's an option if you're in the US, but international, we don't have. Our shipping is a little more limited. We can pretty much just do local, rest of world.
It depends on if you're using fixed or calculated. One of the two.
The option of fixed and calculated shipping.
Really?
Yep, we have to put in our own prices. We have to calculate it ourselves.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. In Canada too, we have fixed or calculated shipping, and in one of them you can check all the boxes of the countries you want to ship to. In the other one, you have to enter in all the places that you want to ship to, which means you can ship Canada, US, Germany, whatever, and then click everywhere else. If you don't have everywhere else, then the ones that aren't listed. So if you don't want to ship to Germany, but you want to ship to everywhere else, you have to enter every single one of those countries.
Yeah, I think we can either say everywhere else or pick every single country you want to send to.
So you have it the annoying way. Jeez.
We only got Etsy shipping labels a little while ago.
Fair.
We're only a small. I'm in the UK. I think most of you know. I'm in the UK. We're only a small market on Etsy.
It's the second largest market.
Yep.
But it's bigger than Canada.
Yep. It's definitely the second largest and has been all the time.
Yeah, it's about 3 times as big as Canada right now, but still like a fifth of the size of the US. As far as
Yeah.
sellers go, I don't know the buyer numbers. Those are the sellers numbers.
I can never say your name properly.
Fantastic
Fantastic.
Neo.
Yeah, that's cool. I'm trying to say it in Italian. That's
Fantastic
how I
Neo.
I'm not surprised the craft supply sales are down. Etsy has a huge, solvable problem with copyright violations.
It's not that easily solvable. It seems
Sadly,
like
it's
it is. It seems like
complicated.
if somebody's putting up a Mickey Mouse shirt, that's a copyright violation, but they might have a license to sell it. And so that's why Etsy can't go through and knock everything down, because they don't know who has a license to sell what. And that's why it's the copyright holder's job or trademark holder's job to come after people.
Yeah. And also simply that's what the law is as well. It has to be the copyright holder has to protect their copyright. It's not at the minute in time, Etsy and other platforms like that don't have to police it. And to be honest, it's kind of good that they didn't, because they would introduce a system that would shut down a lot of listings wrongly. I know this entirely because YouTube went through this a couple of years ago. Yes, with false copyright strikes, false demonetizations, and
it would also open them up to litigation. So if they start being the police and they take down all of the Disney things, but they leave some up, now Etsy's liable because it was their job to make sure that wasn't there. So they're trying to get rid of all blame by saying, no, you have to, and they made it easier. They made it easier last year, I believe, for copyright and trademark holders to kind of mass send out the violations, but there's no easy solution yet.
Yeah, it will come. Things will change, but we're not going to like how they change.
No.
That's my prediction. It's going to be horrible. Fantastic Mio. I'm going with that. People are listing crochet patterns PDFs that they don't own as vintage. Yeah. I can't say anything other than absolutely hate that. I hate seeing the patterns that people are top sellers and you just look and it's like, I am 99% sure you can't sell that.
Yeah.
And it hurts the people who are creating their own patterns.
Well, also, a lot of them come from books from the 50s or 60s, which are still under copyright. And no one's really enforcing them because they're so old and they're just crochet patterns. But yeah, it's frustrating.
It's very tough. Yes. We've got Bexy got on late, but going to rewind. Good to see you. I've not been live for so long. I've been slacking with that, but I think I'll be able to more, because the problem I had, we used BeLive in the past, which was really difficult to change between YouTube channels. I found that out.
Sure is.
Oh yeah, I found that out when I thought I was streaming live to this YouTube channel and I was being rude about Etsy, and I was streaming live to eRank. So please tell me on my own channel. I'm on my own channel just now, but we haven't been rude and Anthony wouldn't mind. But we're using different software that seems to be working so much better. So yay.
It hasn't cut off, so that's a good thing.
CJ's actually in Canada as well. Yay, and now selling vintage. I knew you were shifting your shop, and I think vintage is a really cool idea. Vintage, like craft supplies, is a thing that you can have stuff in your area that nobody else has got. So I think it's a cool thing. It's something that needs a bigger outlay. You need to have money to buy things in the first place, but I would love to be a little antique hunter going around these little shops and buying the cool things and stuff. Yeah.
There's so many rural parts in Canada, like everywhere else in the world, and the stuff that you can find at those markets is crazy. So if you're a vintage hunter and then you're selling on Etsy, crazy. There's so many opportunities.
Yeah. I think it'd be so cool. Anyone who's thinking of doing that, there's some amazing vintage shops on Etsy, and what I'm seeing, what you can do is you can really have a niche. So you could go out looking for 50 kitsch cats, and that could be your shop, and you would find enough stuff and people would come back to you again and again. Or you only like Chinese pottery of this dynasty, or you're only doing this kind of style. You can absolutely have a niche in vintage.
Yep.
Yeah, Bexy's got the same thing with the shipping. She's in the UK, have to go through every single EU country separately.
Easy.
Right. Etsy, we know you're absolutely listening to this. There's 45 of the people watching here are Etsy staff, and they're taking notes.
We actually, in Canada, we got hit. I think it was either last year or the year before with the same issues that you guys have with taxes, how you have to build the taxes into your prices instead of being separate. I pushed a button. I don't know where.
You've unmuted.
The main fleet and 100 ships of the relief fleet.
Let's just turn that off. I was wondering where I was hearing sounds from, and apparently I had a speaker at my feet that I was kicking and apparently turned on.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah, we now have to add our taxes into our prices instead of them being separate, and every province in Canada has a different sales tax, and there's no winning. There's just no winning.
Oh, yes. It has, over the years, it's getting harder and harder to run an online business. Like, all the governments are going, hang on, we could get some money out of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
they
even
don't
though-
understand it. They don't understand how online. They just look at the top. They just look at Amazon, and they're like, "Well, we need some money from that," but then it affects every other marketplace as well. And screw the little guys.
Absolutely. Anna, a shipping question, so you'll probably be better at answering this than me, maybe. What do you think about sending flat things like stickers around the world without tracked shipping? No Etsy labels here, and tracking costs are huge.
Try and find. There's always, like, we don't use Etsy labels. We use Ascendia and Post NL, and both of those are really cheap. There's a lot of like carrier type services which are significantly cheaper than going through Royal Mail or just your regular postal service. So a lot of the time, the best thing to do is ask in Etsy groups. If there's a local one to your country, ask in there, what does everyone use for shipping? Because sometimes there's just better services for those types of things. I personally would not ship anything not tracked, just because we like to track everything. And generally untracked, you can have people trying to scam you. You can have just it not arrive, or it can take 2 to 3 months to arrive, and you have no idea where it is in the process. And so we just, like, as far as customer service goes, we like to just know where the packages are at all times, so that we can say, no, it's hit the border, it's just in customs, or whatever the situation is. But unfortunately, shipping is one of the most expensive things that you have to do with your business. Canada Post it costs us like $22 to send something from Toronto to middle of nowhere Canada, but it only costs us like $6 to send track to the US.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, you probably have the same thing with Royal Mail, where it's just prices are insane.
It's actually really cheap in the UK.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. My parcels, they don't weigh much, but it's a regular small parcel is £3.50. It's maybe £4 just now, anywhere in the UK.
With tracking?
In the
UK,
first class comes tracking as standard now.
I can't even, like, it cost me $9 to send a small box to my neighbor.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy.
No, we have to be the same price all across the UK. That's kind of
fair.
But the UK is nowhere near the size of
I was
Canada.
about to say, UK is very small. We're also subsidizing like the places where they have to helicopter the mail in.
Well, we still have that as well. One of the islands in Scotland here has the smallest flight in the smallest commercial flight in the whole world, and it's less than 2 minutes from one island to the other. And that's a commercial flight.
Wow.
So we have lots of tiny places, but the rest of the UK is very close together.
Fair.
But right, for the question, Anna, I'm slightly Brian's answer is great, and everyone should follow Brian's answer. I don't. Thankfully, the UK finally has Etsy labels. I don't send tracked because the price difference is so great. I suppose we're spoiled that our shipping prices are quite reasonable. So the price difference is so huge. So if I was being compared to another shop in the UK, I'd be like, why is your price twice as much as mine? So it doesn't make sense to add tracking. And also we've been used to, I think in the US and Canada, you've been more used to having tracking as standard, whereas in the UK, it's not been standard. So it's nice we get it in the UK, but we're used to not sending things with tracking. But I have Etsy labels. So that means before Etsy doing the buyer purchase protection program, I just rolled that into my business thing that 1 in 100 things would go missing, I replace, or I refund. It's part of my business costs. Purchase protection program, everybody who complains that something's 2.5 minutes late, Etsy will give the money back. And if you haven't used Etsy labels, Etsy will give your money to the customer without you having any say so.
Not necessarily Etsy labels, just as long as you have tracking. If you don't have tracking, then the refund will come from you.
Yes, that's it. You have to have tracking or Etsy labels.
Or Etsy labels, yeah.
Yeah, if you don't have the option for Etsy labels, flat things like stickers, if you can take the hit, but do know that customers are learning more and more to complain because Etsy will give the money back and they think they're just getting money off of Etsy. They don't realize they're taking the money off of small sellers sometimes, basically. So I'm afraid there's no way around it other than to try and find a decent, cheap tracking. It can be a basic tracking, because that's when I say our first class in the UK gives tracking, it doesn't give good tracking. You can pay more for good tracking.
First class sounds good, but it's not. It's only good when you're flying.
It doesn't need to be, because 90% of the time it's there next day.
Fair.
So we've never really had a problem most of the time. It's not as good. It's getting worse, but that I never felt the need for tracking because it's there before you've filled in the numbers, basically.
True.
I'm trying to say, I think we're through the question.
I'm just going to answer CJ there. CJ said it costs $60 to ship small box from Canada to the UK. Use Stallion Express. If you're in a city that has it, otherwise use Chit Chats. It'll cost you anywhere between $12 to $20 for tracked using either APC or Post NL, and it's great. If you're just sending with Canada Post, it's going to be $60. It's ridiculous. But if you're using one of those extra services, which means you have to be in a big city because they only really service big cities, or you can ship it to them. Stallion Express or Chit Chats, lifesaver. When we switched over to that, we were able to open up international, and we're sending to Australia for cheaper than it costs to send to our neighbor.
That is
great.
Okay, your prices are absolutely crazy. Because I'm sitting at the minute in time, roughly the US is the most expensive place for us to ship to. And for my parcel that costs about £4 in the UK, it's £8 to £9 to send to the US, and it's cheaper everywhere. I can send to Australia for cheaper than that.
That's expensive. £8 is expensive.
Well, it is, because before 2020, it was £3.50 to ship in the UK and £4 for the rest of the world. That's why when people would say, I don't ship internationally, I was like, why? Do you not like money? but things went up after the things that happened in 2020, and we're complaining because it went up to 8 or 9 quid. 60 quid, I'm so sorry. I mean, if it's my items are light, if it's heavier it's a bit more, but yeah, even
Well, he's saying it's because he's in rural Nova Scotia, which is you're not going to have any of those good services out there.
Oh.
The only option that you really have is a lot of them have where you could ship it to them. So you would ship basically from Canada to Canada, and then they would ship it using that cheaper service. So that's possibly an option depending on exactly where you are.
Yeah.
And enjoy your 6 feet of snow out there. I hear it's great.
It's something else, yeah.
They got hit with major
I've seen on
storms
the
over the past
telly.
couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, everyone stay safe, guys. Right. I think I should be letting you go, but Brian, if I should have asked you this before I did, but if people want to keep in touch with you, do you have any socials that they should be finding you on?
If you like weird stuff or gothy stuff, hit us up on Cursed by Design. I just started a group on Facebook called Making Etsy Make Sense, and our whole point there is making a good community of regular fun people to help other people and really understand the basics without any stigmas or anything like that. And so it's making Etsy make sense.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys.
How about you? Where do you find the Crafty group? The Crafty Clan.
Link in the description, because I should have done that for Brian, but Pam Duffy's Crafty Friends, because Facebook wouldn't let me change to clan. That's probably because there's American connotations with clan. I just realized that just now.
Just now you realize that.
Yeah, I kept changing it and going, why isn't Facebook letting me? So we're Crafty Friends there, which is also nice. But mainly here in YouTube. So if you haven't already, subscribe. And if you liked this, let us know. And who knows, Brian might agree to come on another time. I might have more people on the channel. This is a first, and it's been cool. It's much easier.
It might not even be as dry as looking at financials.
I know. But this is weird, when I meet people in real life, when I've actually been met out about in public, which is really worrying, when people come up and they go, "You're Pam Duffy." Like, what did I do? It's very weird. But I've had people introduce me to other people as, she's the one that goes through the boring Etsy things so we don't have to read them. So yeah, apparently people like it.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
But anyway, everyone, thank you so much for joining us and hanging around. These are epic streams. Oh yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.
Bye everyone.